back to Atypical Talk. This is a podcast where we have conversations that illuminate the intersection of faith, culture, and the common spaces of our humanity. I'm Abby.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Brooke.
And before we jump into our first topic, I wanted to ask, as a kid, what was your biggest fear?
I was exposed to the Indiana Jones movies way too young.
I think I was too.
And I just remember being terrified of snakes really young, because Indiana Jones hates snakes, and at one point he falls into like this like bed of snakes basically. And so I was always really terrified of snakes.
I thought you were going to say when all their faces melt at the end of the movie.
Yeah,
that's what I was terrified of.
That was pretty jacked up too. But I had a harder time running into that in real life.
Yeah,
but like
fair.
I remember like not wanting to mow the yard because I saw what I thought was a snake once, and I'm like, I don't want to go back out there walking around to get bit by a snake, and because of that, so I was terrified of snakes. I'm sure it had nothing to do with getting kids Bible stories with the serpent and stuff like that too. I'm sure that played into it actually. But yeah.
What about you, Brooke?
I was thinking about this for a long time earlier, and I don't really remember having like a huge fear other than losing my mom at the grocery store.
Oh, getting lost.
Like I used to be scared of that kind of, which is, my mom never ventured farther than arm's length from me. So I don't know why that was a fear I had. Or maybe that's why I had that fear. But yeah, I can't really think. Maybe I was just a fearless little daredevil gal. I don't know.
You were never afraid of the dark?
I actually am still.
Oh. Bury the lead.
I think a lot of like fears that maybe would have been considered childhood fears, I don't remember being scared of them when I was a kid, but now I am, like the dark. Or, as you guys know, my fear of falling and ice skating and somebody skating over my fingers and getting my fingers sliced off.
Yeah, so, that's really common. It's almost like us being afraid of... I'm pretty terrified of quicksand from things I watched growing up. I thought it'd be a much bigger deal in my adult life falling into quicksand.
Something you'd often have to watch out for.
Oh my god.
What about you, Abby?
I was really scared of the dark too. Like I still to this day, like if I'm going around the house at night, I gotta have a flashlight out and or turn on lights and stuff. Like I hate the dark. Another fear was kind of similar to like getting separated from my mom. I was worried that if she got too far from me, I was gonna get kidnapped. Like I was just terrified.
It wasn't just being lost, it was like I'm gonna get kidnapped.
Yeah. I had like stranger danger to the max. Like I was if some random person started talking to me, I'm like, Mom, why aren't you doing anything? They're gonna kidnap me. Like even if she's standing right there, like stuff like that. But similar to our topic that we're going to be talking about, I was also terrified of someone coming into like church and you talk about this a lot in Sunday school or youth group and stuff, someone coming in with a gun and saying like, oh, you have to say that God isn't real. Or
do you believe in Jesus with a gun to your head kind of thing?
And so like I was convinced that that's just going to happen someday, you know?
I'm going to have to, I'm going to either stand up for God or get shot. That was the thinking.
That was a huge
talk
fear.
About our generation that's just been traumatized by gun violence and by mass shootings. That was like such a huge part of our fears. Yeah, I remember having that same thing, you know, because I was pretty young when Columbine happened, and there was that whole like, will you say that you believe in Jesus if your life was on the line? Oh man.
Yeah.
Traumatized for sure.
Definitely a big trauma, and something that I was like, well, it's gonna happen someday. Like I was just convinced that was just part of growing up, but thankfully never ran into that yet. Our first topic today, it's an NBC News article titled Kentucky Pastor Defends Viral Video Showing Mock Firing Squad in Front of Children. A viral video from Mount Olivet Baptist Church in Lexington, Kentucky sparked widespread controversy after it showed men in military-style costumes performing a mock firing squad execution in front of children during Vacation Bible School. In the clip, the costumed men march down the church aisle, pretending to shoot a person dressed in black and carry them outside, all while children chant, "Take him out, blow him up," followed by an explosion sound effect. Pastor Dwayne Walker pushed back against the criticism, calling the outrage misinformation and explaining that the skit was part of a 32-year tradition meant to dramatize the battle between good and evil, saying, "The clip you saw was simply killing the devil." Despite his defense, the video drew sharp condemnation from groups like the Kentucky chapter of Moms Demand Action, whose volunteers called it unbelievably disturbing and argued that churches should be safe spaces where adults model safety and grace for children rather than simulate violent raids. What was your initial reaction to hearing about this story and watching the video?
I mean, it's tradition.
It's tradition. You can't stop it.
Yeah, and, people love violence. So sex and violence sells. I get it. So can we just move on? Can we just...
Bro, I have so much more to say.
My boys would have thought that was epic, by the way. I'm just saying. I'm just saying right now.
But also Blair, who is
your
the
daughter.
Same age
would be terrified.
as one of your sons, would be terrified.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm sure that the church's intent wasn't
to traumatize kids.
That's
kids. True. You can think that.
Yeah. I'm sure that their intent was not to make the kids think that they had to quite literally shoot Satan.
Blow them up. Take them out.
But just as literal as kids take things. And I think about our own version of VBS, Bridgeway Kids Camp, and we have kids as young as 4 here. Mm-hmm. And I just can't imagine thinking putting gun violence in front of them would be a good decision, or a decision that parents would also support.
It was the devil they were killing, bro.
I get it. Still not my favorite.
No.
Still not my favorite.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Why do you think some churches feel the need to go over the top to get a point across like this?
I think that churches are trying to, we all try to capture attention, and we try to do something that's going to stop people in their tracks. And so the impulse to make sure that everybody's watching and do something to where everybody can watch so you can tell them something that you find to be important.
Yeah.
I get. But I think not thinking through, a traumatized generation of kids and then their parents who have also been traumatized by gun violence and mass shootings in the schools is just a real bonehead move. And I really am, it's sad that the church leadership is doubling down on it instead of being like, oh yeah, we missed the mark on this one. We did not think through this. That's one of my takeaways from it. But ultimately, even beyond that, I think theologically, just teaching what that even communicates to our kids is not just maybe psychologically harmful. I think it's just wrong. I think that if we teach our kids that what God does is snipe out and blow up the devil through violence, we're actually unintentionally, I think we're portraying a false version of who God is and a false version of who Jesus is and how Jesus actually defeats death, evil, Satan, sin, all those different kind of things. You look at the Gospels, you see how the initial defeat of evil, sin, death, the Satan is actually through Jesus' sacrificial death. He defeats death by entering into death, not by killing somebody, right? It's actually at the cross that looks like defeat where it's actually victory. In Revelation 5, and you get to the very end of the New Testament, you see that you see the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and you turn and you see the lion is actually a slaughtered lamb. And you've seen that victory actually comes through sacrificial love and through Jesus laying himself down. Later in Revelation, you see that Jesus defeats Satan by exposing his lies, by being faithful and true. All throughout the Bible, you see these images of Satan being the liar, the deceiver. And then in Revelation 19, you see that Jesus is the one who is faithful and true. So he exposes lies, not shooting the liar or killing the liar, but exposing the lies. Even beyond that, we see that Jesus defeats Satan in Revelation through faithful witness of his people who are enduring persecution, refusing to bow down to idols, remaining faithful even if they die for their beliefs. We see victory comes through a faithful witness in this. And then ultimately Jesus defeats Satan at the very end of the picture. We see Jesus riding on a white horse, and we see that Jesus defeats Satan through the sword coming out of his mouth, which represents not a weapon, but the word of God, the sword of the Spirit, if you will. So again, defeating him not through violence, but through truth, by sacrificial love, by who he actually is. And so all the way throughout the scriptures, you don't see a version of God who fights fire with fire. You see this version of God who fights fire with mercy and love and this upside down kind of justice to put things back together, not just to punish. And so beyond the ridiculous traumatizing that something like this can do, I think we're teaching our kids the wrong thing about who our God is and how this is a God who chooses nonviolence so much that he goes and dies for the people that are inflicting violence on him. And that's the kind of version of God that I want our kids to understand and see, that this God is different. This is a different kind of king. This is a different kind of power. It's sacrificial love. That's the thing that really changes the world. So to step off my little soapbox for a moment, Jesus doesn't shoot Satan, blow him up, take him out kind of thing. Jesus defeats Satan by sacrificial love and by mercy and forgiveness and by truth. And that's what we should be telling our kids instead of get Satan in your sniper scope.
Yep.
Yeah, a little bit better of a story, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
I agree.
So our next topic, it's a KTVU article titled Southwest Airlines Captain Makes Heartwarming Final Flight to Oakland with His Daughter as the co-pilot. Southwest Airlines Captain Jim Curtis recently completed his final flight before mandatory retirement at age 65, capping a remarkable 43-year career that included 21 years in the Air Force and 22 years with Southwest, during which he logged over 18,000 flight hours and served as assistant chief pilot in Oakland. What made the Las Vegas to Oakland farewell flight truly special was his co-pilot was his own daughter, First Officer Julia Curtis, who used the intercom to emotionally address passengers, crediting her father as the man who inspired her to become a pilot and taught her to lead with humility, kindness, and integrity. Julia, a UC Berkeley graduate and former Cal women's soccer player, joined Southwest through its Destination 225-degree career pathway program and became the airline's 200,000th employee, a milestone that holds extra meaning given her father's long tenure with the company. The flight landed in Oakland to a celebratory reception of cheers, bubbles, and pom-poms, and Southwest shared the heartwarming video on Father's Day, with Captain Curtis summing it up perfectly. I know what this job has done for me, and I think it'll be the same for her. What did you guys think of this story? I
just have a lasting question. Do you think he gets free pretzels for life now?
I hope so. Southwest pretzels are
Southwest
so good.
pretzels, where it's at. Like, I mean, I know it's probably special to get other things too, but the pretzels. That's what
yes, exactly.
I mean, I thought it was really sweet. It was heartwarming. It was cool to consider. Your daughter following your footsteps, and just the gratefulness he had for his career, post the military with Southwest, and what a cool thing to sort of be side by side, and then metaphorically pass the baton to your daughter in that way.
Yeah.
I thought it was sweet. Gave me the warm fuzzies inside. Yeah.
I didn't realize that there was mandatory retirement for pilots. It makes sense. Like,
we should probably do that with a driver's license too. Is all I'm going to say. A little soapbox.
Yeah. But no, I thought it was just really sweet. I saw the video when it was initially posted by Southwest, and I was like, oh, we got to talk about this. This is really sweet. And like, it was kind of heartwarming because in the video she goes through and talks about, how great he is, all this stuff. And she goes, towards the end of her speech, she says, and by the way, this is my dad.
Yeah.
And because she talks about, he trained me to be a pilot and all this stuff. And then she's like, he also taught me how to ride a bike. And it's a sweet little speech. And I think you should go watch it. It'll be linked in the show notes.
It got me a little watery eyed.
Yes.
To be honest, all of these pilot, I don't know, maybe it's my algorithm now since I've seen this video. All the pilot, final flight videos, they're all so sweet. And when their family is on the flight, it makes it even sweeter. Yeah. And then this, he's taking his final flight with his daughter, who's now, going to also be a pilot, or is a pilot, I guess. It's just so sweet.
Yeah. So did you ever consider following in your dad's footsteps when it came to choosing a career?
There are a lot of things that my dad is that I hope to be when it comes to the kind of person he is. Never really considered following in his footsteps.
Which was what?
My dad is retired from Chrysler. He worked in the casting plant.
I could see you doing it. I could see it.
I love the heat. I'm a rough galley.
Yeah.
Anybody who says I'm a rough galley, they're ready for the casting plant with Chrysler.
I did go in there one time, and I could tell within the first 5 minutes that was not going to be for me. But my dad actually, growing up, he would always tell me, like, you know, Chrysler was a great career for him. It provided well for our family. We're very grateful for it. But he always said, like, I never, and this is not any shame to anybody who does, but he just always said, I never want, like, my daughter to have to work in those conditions, just because, like, I don't know, hopefully things have changed a little bit, but I know when I was younger, the few women who were working in there, sometimes there were comments made by other men to these women that were inappropriate, and also, like, it's just hot and stinky in there. And so, yeah, that wasn't really something I considered. My dad also has a body shop, so now that he's retired from Chrysler, he does that pretty much full-time, but he's always kind of done it part-time. And fun fact about me, I do know how to do a little bit of body work.
I was going to say, Brooke is very knowledgeable when it comes to cars, so she could.
I know where I'm going to Brooke. Next time I run into something, I'm going to take it to Brooke first.
Yeah, I wouldn't
just
do
buff
that,
this out.
but I can buff. I can sand. Yeah, so I can do a few things. But yeah, loved growing up, getting to go out and, like, help my dad in the shop with things sometimes, and he might throw me $20 or $30 every now and then, you know, but never considered doing that as my full-time job.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
Mine was complicated in some regard because my grandfather started a small manufacturing business, and then my dad sort of succeeded him and became the president and owner of that business. And I remember being old enough that when my grandpa retired and gave it to my dad, I remember having this thought, like, oh man, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, because it's like passing it down kind of reality. And even though my dad would always say, like, oh, I don't want you to have to do this, it's really, really stressful, you don't have to do this, I remember having that kind of that pressure that was just there, and thinking about, oh, I probably should do this to keep it in the family and all that kind of stuff. And is a really sweet moment I'll never forget. My dad's been gone now for almost 12 years, but I remember he was there when I gave my very first sermon in front of adults. And he came, and he came up to me afterwards and gave me a hug, and he goes, I hope you know you should pursue this, like, with your career, like, you're really, really gifted in this, and hope you know that I'm for you if you want to keep doing this. And it was a really freeing thing for me, because I remember feeling that kind of pressure that he never really spoke, but it was just there. And sort of as he sort of helped me understand my call into this kind of work that I do as a pastor, it was just really meaningful, because I did think that I was going to have to be running a manufacturing firm, which is just so funny. I've been so bad. It would not be around now if I was doing it, because I would probably ran it into the ground by now. But that's what I thought I was going to have to do.
Yeah. So my dad has always been a pastor my whole life, and I always said I would not work in a church. But somehow I ended up here. But I saw a lot of the bad aspects of what it is being a pastor. And, like, my dad always pastored really small churches, so he was always the only employee. So I feel like it was a lot more stress on him than what my job is, right now. So I love working at a church, but yeah, I always said, nope, I don't want to do that. I don't like talking in front of people.
You've seen how the sausage is made.
Yep.
And
I don't want to deal with those kinds of messes and stuff. But he's still doing it. He still enjoys it. He's at a church that he loves now. So
my son, Jack, our oldest, as this last year, he started talking about careers some. And he announced to us, he goes, well, I'm going to be an NFL player, but then I'm also going to be a pastor, which is just so funny. I'm like, well, that's probably how you have a pretty big church. But it's just so funny in his head. He's like, well, I'm going to be an NFL player and a pastor is what he's thinking.
Might as well.
That's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet. But in, like, all seriousness, though, like, Megan and I talk all the time that we know the pressure and the hardship of being a PK, a pastor's kid, and how many PKs we know that now want to have nothing to do with the church or with Christianity. And we're like, all the time, like, how can we hand our kids a faith that they don't feel like they need to deconstruct or walk away from? And how can we present the unique life that we've chosen in starting and helping lead a church to not want them to, like, hate the church, like, how we talk about it and how we treat it, not like a burden, but as a joy and a gift. And we're just all the time thinking, like, oh man, we just hope that our kids want to go to church when we're not, we're not dragging them to church kind of thing. Sorry, a little bit of a sidebar. It's got me in my feels thinking about our kids.
Yeah. Our next topic is going to be about school. But before I jump into that, what subjects were you best at in school?
Lunch. I slayed. No, I am much more of an English and history brain than I am a math science brain. I struggled through math and science. Yeah. But like literature and writing and things with history and hearing like the narratives of stuff and picking it up. I like that part of it. That was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the same way. Math, definitely not my thing. But also I loved yearbook, which I know that sounds so silly, and it's also definitely because I'm so social and never had to go to an actual classroom for that class. But I found that I did really enjoy being able to write things for yearbook and take pictures, and of course there was like the socializing part of it and interviewing people for, you know, inserts for the yearbook. But yeah, I loved that class, and I know it's not really a subject, but it was the best for me.
Yeah. In school, I was really good at math, actually. But I feel like now if you gave me an algebra textbook, I'd be like, nope, can't help you here, sorry. But then also I was really good at English, specifically like the grammatical side of it, you know, knowing punctuation and contractions and all that different type of stuff. Like I feel like I'm really good at that. So I'm great at proofreading if anyone ever needs that. But no, other than that, like math was the thing that I was most strong at. So
good for you, girl.
Let's balance each other out. English and yearbook and math.
Yep.
We could do anything.
Yep. Our final topic today is a Forbes article titled "Schools Introduce Hybrid Options as Homeschooling's Popularity Persists." 6 years after the COVID-19 pandemic prompted a surge in homeschooling, data shows that homeschooling numbers remain well above pre-pandemic levels across the U.S., according to Johns Hopkins University's Homeschool Research Lab. Homeschooling grew at an average rate of 4.9% during the 2024-2025 academic year, nearly 3 times the pre-pandemic growth rate, with 36% of reporting states recording their highest homeschool enrollment numbers ever. States like North Dakota, South Carolina, and Louisiana have seen particularly strong and sustained growth, with families citing reasons such as classroom size, scheduling flexibility, and the desire for more personalized learning experiences. In response to this enduring demand, schools are increasingly introducing hybrid homeschooling options that blend the flexibility of homeschooling with the structure and community of traditional schooling. A notable example is the Innovation School in Bismarck, North Dakota, which launched a new hybrid program this academic year, allowing students like Quinn Cash to attend part-time while continuing their home education. Nationally, an estimated 8% of homeschooled students are already learning in hybrid environments, and educators expect this model to keep growing as families seek alternatives that prioritize individualization, curiosity, and real-world connection over standardized one-size-fits-all approaches. So what do you guys think about the rise in people choosing to homeschool right now?
I think that there are several benefits to homeschooling when it comes to like the flexibility for families. I know, like, obviously it gives you a lot more time with your kids, and as I have 2 littles of my own, I think, man, the time you get with them is so short. So if you have the ability and you feel like you're able to homeschool and get the extra time with them, then in some scenarios, I think that's great. And I can see why families would see it as beneficial. Before working at the church, I worked in public education and taught for a couple of years, and I love the public school. I love public education, but also there are realities of teaching large class sizes, and there's lack of funding, so that also leads to lack of support in classrooms and a lot of pressure for teachers to teach to the test, if you will, because of a lot of state testing. And when you're a parent and you're considering all of those things and seeing some of those cons, I can understand why maybe there might be an increase in that. Not saying that it's necessarily better for all kids to be homeschooled, but I can definitely see why for some families it might be beneficial. Mm-hmm.
I think, seeing the big spike after COVID is interesting just because, a lot of schools were shut down. They were shut down for prolonged periods of time. A lot of kids got behind in education. But I think something else that just COVID did sociologically to us was that it sort of dislodged institutions and the way that people look up to just institutions, and people feeling bound by institutions or lied to or cheated by institutions. And I think in some ways, public education is another one of those institutions that has lost some of its gleam and some of its glimmer because of the dislodging that the pandemic caused people. Not only that, but just I speak to parents that are millennials and Gen Z all the time, and fear is a really big driver. Fear of what's being taught, what's not being taught, the influences of all these different kinds of families that are in the school system, that they want to make sure that their kids are not influenced in a negative direction. And there's a lot of culture wars inside of this as well. Not to mention that there was a lot of talk of mandating sort of shot records and things like that, while we have a distrust increase in the health institutions in our country as well, a la COVID and the pandemic. So I think there was just so many things happening all at once. But the underlying question that I really have when people approach me about homeschooling is why? Like, what is causing you to lean into this reality? And like Brooke mentioned, it might be that you want to have more flexibility and you want to spend more time with your kids, and maybe you feel called to be the primary, not only caregiver, but educator of your kids. And that's a very valid response. If you're a Jesus follower, though, I would always just push back to be like, if fear is in the driver's seat, you need to ask a different set of questions. For sure. If you are just afraid of what could happen to your kids, or if you're just afraid that unless you step in and take control of this, then something terrible is going to happen, I think that is getting you in a place where you're not being led by the voice of love, but you're being led by the voice of fear. And ultimately, you are trying to control more than you can actually control. And that's a possibility as well. And especially when fear is a part of these culture war conversations of, well, I want to make sure that my kids aren't indoctrinated with evolution, or as they might say, evolution, or they might you want to make sure that they're like learning stuff about the Bible. Like, I mean, I want my kids to have a biblical worldview as well. I ultimately don't think it's school's responsibility to be the one to deliver those. It's my responsibility as a parent to be the one to deliver those kind of a thing. So my wife and I talk often that we don't want to be helicopter parents. We want to be lighthouse parents, and by that we want to like guide them and be with them as they experience things, to help them navigate and guide situations, not to just make sure they never fall down, or to make sure that we're never putting them in a place where there can be adversity. We want them to have grit, and so we want to teach them those things. And so and you know, when it comes to homeschooling conversation, my wife was homeschooled kindergarten through senior year. We've made the decision that we want our kids to be in public school. We want them to be around as much diversity of socioeconomics, as much diversity of ethnicity as possible, and we want to help guide them to be salt and light in dark places. And so we think that's just how we have chosen to do it. But there's just so much fear and language of culture war and misinformation that goes along with it, that I'm afraid that there's a lot of people that are making a decision like this based off of just what could go wrong, and just this fear-driven response that I think ultimately might shortchange not only a child's possible education, but also it's going to shortchange you, because you're going to be carrying a weight that your Heavenly Father has not designed you to carry, but you feel like you have to carry instead. What do you think, Abby? I mean, you were homeschooled through kindergarten through all of high school. So like, where do you read sort of this big uptick in homeschooling, and maybe what was your story with it?
Yeah. So growing up, like a lot of my friends who were also homeschooled, and maybe even a little bit with my parents, the whole story was, you know, we want to control what they are learning. Like, we want to make sure they're not being taught evolution. We want to make sure that they're being taught about the Bible and stuff. And I understand wanting that, but also, like you were saying, it is the parents' place to be teaching that. So if you want to make sure that your kids know about the Bible and understand, what is and isn't true with evolution, maybe you have those discussions when they come home and, start talking about what they learned in science class, things like that. But I also think that homeschooling just isn't for everyone. There were a lot of kids that I knew growing up that were not, they would have thrived so much better in a public school environment. And there are some kids that do need to learn at their own pace, and their parents are equipped to help them learn at their own pace. And so it is great for some people. I don't think it's great for everyone. Yeah. And then also just the whole, they want to indoctrinate our kids. That's just making teachers out to be evil. We partner with multiple schools here at the church, and I can tell you every teacher I've met through that, none of them are evil. None of them are out to, brainwash your kids or anything.
They're honestly just doing their best to survive out there.
Yeah, man. It's tough,
yeah. And so I think, leading with fear is really not just villainizing the school system, but it can also villainize the teachers and make them out to be these terrible people. But yeah, like you said, Brooke, they're just trying to survive. They're just trying to teach your kids to the best of their ability, and they're trained for it. They know how to do it, and they know what they need to do to teach your kids, and they do a great job at it.
I think it's also, if you're considering this, people have different skill sets and different abilities, and I think maybe something that doesn't get as much talk or air as it needs to in this conversation is whoever that primary educator is going to be at home, whether it be mom or dad, are you skilled and gifted to educate? This is not pushing play on a video, but instruction and understanding things, but not only understanding it, but being able to teach it. And there's an art to being an educator that sometimes I think we might overlook because we love our kids and we want to do the best for them, but we might not have the skill set to do it. I don't think I would be a great teacher in a classroom setting or in a homeschool setting at home, just because of my temperament and the way that it's hard for me to explain how I get to certain places to show your work kind of thing. And I think we have to consider that too, because that's ultimately what's going to be best for our kids as well. And Abby, as you mentioned too, there can be a lot of fear of what the schools are, in quotes, indoctrinating our kids with. But what's obvious and true is that our kids sooner or later are going to be introduced to the reality that there are competing ideas and there are different worldviews and people see things differently. And we started to see this in kindergarten with our oldest when this so-and-so's parents let him do this. And then we're like, oh, well, we're not in our house, but how do we say we don't in our house without looking down on so-and-so's parents and their family and say we're better than their family? That is a reality. And so it's been multiple times in our parenting journey already we've had to say things like, yeah, people believe different things about God, or they believe different things about this and that. And this is what we believe and why we believe. And you'll have to make up your mind for that someday too. But in our family right now, this is what we do. And I think we have to do that as we raise kids, and it's again not on the schoolroom, the teacher, the administration to do, but parents, we need to be in the driver's seat of those conversations instead of just being like, well, if they're there, then we don't know what they're this and that. I just don't think that's helpful, and it also just negates the reality that they're going to face in the world that we all face, that we brush shoulders with people and work alongside of people that have radically different worldviews and different beliefs every day. I want to introduce to our kids, as much as they can handle it, as soon as possible, how to walk in those situations with grace and empathy and understanding and still have their own mind and heart connected to what we think is going to help them flourish.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this episode of Atypical Talk. If you have any topics you want us to talk about or questions, you can email those to atypicaltalkpod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at atypicaltalkpod. And make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to get updates when new episodes go live. We hope that these conversations today have helped you think wider, love deeper, and partner with God to bring the up there and down here in your everyday life. Thanks for listening.
Take them out, blow them up.